Right, now we're going to put the original bolt back in on the bottom pulley. We're only putting the bolt in. It just allows us to turn the engine to line up all the marks. Now, to be fair, especially on a petrol engine, if you want to get top dead centre, you can take out number 1 spark plug, you can put a long screwdriver in, turn it, and that'll get you top dead centre. So if you're not sure on marks, you can do it that way. I'm not going to show you that way because I don't want to put too much information in there, but I'm just saying you can do that. But these marks are really easy to see and do, so we're going to use the marks. So all I'm going to do is turn it by hand until all my marks line up. And I'm going to turn it clockwise. You don't want to turn these anti-clockwise. You're going to turn it clockwise, tighten that bolt until the engine starts moving. Now the engine starts moving. Now we just go on the bottom one. If you look down here, there's a tiny little mark where my finger is. That mark sticking out is the mark that has to line up on the pulley. Now when I get it round, we'll zoom into it and I'll show you so you can see. Now, this is going to be maybe tricky to show on camera, but now you just zoom into this, Johnny.
I got a really good picture of it here.
Now you zoom onto where the screwdriver is.
Yeah.
If you see these teeth, all these teeth are square, and this tooth has got a chamfered edge on both sides. Now hopefully it is that showing up on camera? It's got a chamfered edge here and a chamfered edge there. That lines up with this mark here. Okay? And the reason you definitely know it does is because you go to the top pulley then, and this little gadget fits in there, look. So that's how you know you've definitely got the bottom marks correct. So this slots in there, and this tooth here is chamfered on both ends. So that's it, off. Now, like I said, your tippex is your best friend. You can see that the bottom marks lined up there, and you definitely know you're right because these two have slotted in here. Now you have to make sure they slot through the cams and into a little cutout. You can feel them when they go in. They're in and locked. But still, I'm still going to mark everything. It's always best to, just in case. I'm going to mark everything to my marks, how I like to do it. So I'm going to mark on the proper mark there. I'm going to mark on there, and I like to do 2 marks. I'm going to use his old mark and this one here. This is the way I like to do it. Now you don't need to mark anything else down here. All you need to mark is these 2 top pulleys here. So again, I'm going to use his old marks here on the cover. I'm just going to hit them on there, and the same again here. I'm going to do that. And just hit them there. So you can actually, think about it, you can actually just move that belt out slightly, just like that, look. Now, it gives you a bit more space, and I'm going to use that, not use that particular mark. I'm going to just hit one of the teeth here, and up there, and do it twice on 2 teeth. I like to personally mark 2 teeth, and same in here, mark it twice. Now, the beauty of that now is because we've got the proper marks lined up, we've marked it, anything happens now, if you put the new belt on, because sometimes you can put the new belt on and it can slip or something can move, so you can line it back up with marks. If nothing lines up, you can just take the belt back off and reset it. It could take you a couple of times, it might not, but it's not really a big deal. We've got the top 2 cams locked. The bottom cam isn't locked, but we don't really need it to be. And then everything else, all we're going to do now is just literally loosen off this tensioner. Once you loosen off that tensioner, everything should come off. This is now the scary bit, because this is kind of a point of no return now. So I think it's a 13. Yeah, 13 mil. Are you ready? This is now the point of no return. So as soon as I do this, feel the tensioner going. You see it now, you heard that click. That tensioner's gone fully back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to completely take it off because we don't need it now. Now, here's the old tensioner. And you can see, we'll show you these marks and how these go back up, but that's the old tensioner. To be fair, that doesn't actually sound too bad. So that's the first belt tensioner. And now you can see this belt will come off. So now that belt's off. And what you can do now is just very gently take that out. Take that off. And that will fit straight back in. Which it has done, nothing's moved. Now this is the old belt, and as you can see when I squeeze that together, you can see tiny little cracks in it. You see that? Let me see if I can. It might not come through camera, but there is tiny little cracks on that. So this belt definitely is good that it's being changed. There's one belt off. Now, I don't know if you heard the noise we were trying to get through first with the water pump. When I spin this, I know this is not the water pump, when I spin this there's no noise. You're not going to be able to hear it. Now when I spin this water pump, let the traffic go past, you can hear the roughness in this. And there's a bit of play. Hopefully that's coming through camera. That's a really rough noise. As soon as I say that, all the traffic coming past the road. That's typical, isn't it?
Alright, we'll stop them.
Now, hopefully you can hear that on camera. That is really rough. You shouldn't. We'll get the new water pump. This is the new water pump. As you can hear, absolutely nothing. It's as smooth, there's no play, absolutely nothing in that. And this one, so we know that water pump is bagged. It's bloody bagged. So that's a good thing. So that's what our other noise was coming from. The problem is with this particular car, as you can see from the other videos, we've done a lot with it. There was 2 and 3 different noises. And when there's 2 and 3 different noises, it's very difficult to try and figure out what noises are which, but lucky enough, we managed to do that. So now we're going to take off these idlets here. It's the next job. 16mm, I would say. Yep. If you're not used to this as well, what might be a good idea is just to take a picture. Every time you take something off, take a picture, take a mental note of where bits are or where bits should go and stuff like that, you know. Don't be worried if this takes you 2 days to do first or anything like that, you know, just take your time. You don't have to get this done in a few hours. Once you get used to them, you can obviously do them a lot faster, but you know, it's not the end of the world. Just take your time because you don't want to mess this up. Oh, well that's gone. We don't need it. Jesus Christ. Now that's a 15mm, but that was too tight. I mean, obviously you don't want these coming off, don't get me wrong, but I mean, they shouldn't be that tight either. Now this is the other idler. Again, to be honest, that doesn't sound too bad. But again, we're changing it all, so, you know. Like I said, in our new box, you get everything. You get new bolts, you get new everything. Well, you don't get the new bolt with that, which is stupid, but anyway. So yeah, just keep stripping bits off now. Now that's really it as regards the first belt. What you want to do now is we're going to take off the water pump and put the new water pump on before we go near this. Don't need to go near this yet. And again, it's always good just to make sure that everything nothing's moved. Always keep an eye on everything, make sure nothing's moved, and you sort it. So we're going to take the water pump off now. As you can see, on this one it's only 2 bolts. 1, 2. You don't get the new bolts with it. You have to use the old bolt. But you do get a new seal. Now, I've seen people seal these and everything, but believe me, that seal honestly does do the job. Right, so there's 2 bolts on the water pump, and these ones are both 6mm Allen keys. Now, another good tip is just get a bucket, and as you open and take the water pump, try and catch as much of the water and the antifreeze as you can, especially if you just have to change it. Because if you change it, there's no point wasting it. You can actually filter it and put it back into the car. But now if you're due a change, then obviously, yeah, you just change it, but there's no point wasting it. Let's take off the top bolt. So it's just a normal 6mm. And take off the bottom bolt. Now this is kind of tricky to catch everything, but you can, like I said, you can catch most of it. I'm holding one hand and I'm screwing the bolt out with my other hand. And another good thing about catching the water, if you're going to use it or not, is obviously it saves a big mess on the floor. So that's the old one. As you can see, again, like I was saying on previous videos, check everything that you go into your car to check the size, that, because this is very important. That pulley has to be the same size. If it's too small or too big, you're going to do damage to your engine. Physically check the shape of them, and you can see the shape is the same. Now, there's a slight difference on these, but it's nothing to worry about. As you can see, the way they're sealed, this one has like a metal gasket, and this one has a cutout for a rubber gasket. So again, that's not a problem, so you reuse that. Just make sure that this part of the engine is clean, so we're going to have to get a Stanley blade on that and clean that part, because otherwise it won't seal properly, so you have to do that next. But what hopefully you can hear now is the roughness in that. That sounds really rough. Hopefully it's coming through camera. And this one is perfect. Now, so we're going to clean that next. What I'm going to do with the Stanley knife blade is clean off all this crap. Just all I'm doing, you can see the bits coming off. You need to go around the whole thing. It's going to take a few minutes. Go around the whole thing and make sure it's completely and utterly clean. And you just get a rag and you can see the bit I've done to the bit I haven't done. That might get in your way, you can move that out of the way. So we're going to do that and then we'll put it back on.
Okey-dokey.
Now.
Yep.
Now, as you can see, we've cleaned all that. Now the next thing you want to do is obviously put this back, but you want to make sure, because obviously you angle that too much, as you can see that's coming out, so you want to make sure that is in place. You can use a little bit of grease and just to hold it in place, but we shouldn't really need to. And you can see the way to have it, because it can only go in one way. Now I'm going to hold that and put the top bolt in. Now just to hold it there, because I have to put this cover back on, but I'm just holding it there at the minute. So this cover here has to come over the top. So I'm just going to hold that there. Now, Take that back out now. Slide the cover over, put it down. That's why I like to do it, because at least if you get one bolt in, it just holds it in place. And then you can bring the cover over. Rather than if you try and bring the cover over and hold everything in place, it can just be a bit more of a nightmare. So the bottom bolt goes in. Now I'm just at the bottom here, tightening this bottom bolt. It's easy to do it. I'm just lying on the floor, it's simple enough. Obviously one of these tight, because this is your water pump after all. The last thing you want to be doing is putting all the belt on and realising it's leaking, or take everything up again, which is a nightmare to say the least. That's the bottom one done. Here's the top one. Nah, it's the top one done. It's best just to give it a bit of a spin to make sure it's not catching, and it does spin. Now, we'll take off the old top belt now. Now we're going to take off the tensioner that holds the second belt in. It's right underneath the pulleys, 13mm bolt. Fuck you. Now, that's the tensioner for the bottom one. Keep them all separate. Most cars only have really one belt, so you don't have to do it. Not every car has two belts. And you can just slide this one off. Now, that's the little bolt. Supposed to happen. Now that's all our belts off. Now it's when we start putting stuff back on. So yeah, all just keep an eye on nothing's moved or anything like that. Now here's your belt kit. What you want to do is get everything out that you need. That's the little belt we need first, and that's the tensioner. Now you can't really mess up the tensioners because they're completely different. So That's the tensioner we need with that belt. So put them others to a side for a minute. We need the old bolt out of that. Now, this little notch that's sticking out actually lines up with this hole here. Can you see that? You see that?
No, I can, yeah.
Right, so this little notch here has to go inside there, like that. Has to go inside there. And that's what holds it, stops it from spinning. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the belt on first. Put it around the top pulley. Make sure it's in, like that. And put it around the bottom pulley. Sorry, there's not the bottom pulley, but the pulley next to it. Now that belt's on, but obviously there's no tension. So now we've got to put the tensioner on and tension it. And the simplest way to do it, once you screw the tensioner in, so it's just, it's nipped a little bit, it's not too tight. You get an Allen key then, and as you screw this with an Allen key, there's a little arrow on it, look, you have to get the right arrow. And as you screw this round, this little lever then starts coming up, and once it's in the middle, once it matches up with that, then you tension it. I'm going to try and show this. This is what's going to be kind of hard to show because my hands are going to be in the way. So basically you need a 13mm spanner and a 6mm Allen key, and you kind of have to do all this together. So you have to spin the spanner with one hand, and when this starts lifting up, tighten the bolts with the other hand. And that's when you got the right tension. This is going to be hard to show. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now the little notch I was talking about fits in this hole here. Now this is a bit of a nightmare, this one, to get in, because you have to kind of put pressure on the, you have to lift it up to put pressure on the belt and screw this in at the same time. This one can be very fiddly to get in. Might take a few minutes now to get this one in. But as you can see, this little notch here lines up. This little notch lines up with that hole there. So it's going to take a few minutes to get this in. Right, I've got it in, so I'm just going to tighten this. Not fully tighten it, but just make sure it's not going to pop out. Now that's just a tiny bit nipped. And as you can see, this little slider, this little notch is in this hole here. Now what we've got to do, this is the tricky part. Now, what you want to do is get your 6mm Allen key and put it in the old slot. Now there's an arrow to it, and it happens to be anti-clockwise, but look at the arrow. And what I'm doing, I'm moving it very slowly, and as I'm moving it, you'll see the pin starting to move. Now, you see the pin moving now? It's moving a bit more, it's moving a bit more. And we're waiting for that pin to line up with the hole, which is about there. So that pin now lines up with that hole. What I'm doing is I've still got the Allen key in my hand. I'm holding the tension on that, and I'm going to tighten the 13mm bolt with the ratchet all at the same time. And you have to keep checking that nothing moves. So just tighten it, give it a couple of squeezes, double check, nothing's moved, it looks good. Give it another squeeze. Again, double check. Sorted. Now I should be able to tighten this home now. Now, as you can see, that is lined up with that pin. So we now know that this top belt is now tensioned. So we've got to do the second belt now. Job's a good one. Now, as you can see, we've done the bottom. So you just come up to the top and make sure your top marks are good. Like I said, I happen to have this, and this hasn't moved, so I know it can't have gone anywhere because this is in, but I also like to double mark it. Now, we need to start putting the second belt in. So what we need is the two idlers that came with it. So first one goes there. Second one goes here. Now, it goes over the bolt for the water pump. So it slides over like that, so you know you've got it in the right place. But we just need to get the bolt which fell. Yeah. Sem 2 in. Stop. Now tighten the 16, whichever one you want first, doesn't really matter. Nice squeeze. Now for the second one. Now they're tight. So again, what you want to do now, make sure they're all nicely spinning freely. Make sure it hasn't moved on the bottom marks, because now we need to, well, first put the tension on loosely. Now this tension is the same as the other one. You've got an arrow so you know which way to turn it. This little mark then, this little pin, lines up with that. So again, we'll show you that when I start tightening it. That will literally start going all the way over to there. This here slots over the bolt, so that holds it in. Again, I'll show you that. You can just see that bolt there holds it.
Yeah, we can see that.
You see the bolt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, put this in hand tight. So you see that bolt holds it there, and this will slide down to meet that, so we know we get the right tension. Now this is where the fun really begins. Because there's no, this isn't locked like the top two pins. When we go to tighten this could move. So there is a slightly special way of putting the timing belt on to try and stop that. Again, this is the belt. Some have arrows on it, this one doesn't, so it can go on anyway. So the next thing I want to do is take out that. And again, if you do have one of these tools, another good thing, that shouldn't be under tension. If I release that, these shouldn't really move. So that should be able to slide in and out really easily, as it does. But just make sure you don't hit it. So just put it on there first. And you just slide these back. Now, so now normally you would start from the bottom crank and you'd work your way up anti-clockwise, but obviously because we have to put this belt on here first, I have to do it slightly differently. So hopefully you can see that goes around and on, and then now this is
recording.
Right, this is all just loose, as you can see, just to try and get the belt on first. Might be a bit fiddly. Now the belt is physically on. It's on everything, but obviously there's no tension on it. But it's physically on. As you can see, look, that's way too loose. And also, if you look at the bottom, that's moved slightly. So that's another thing to be aware of. That has actually moved. Now when we come to tighten up this, just trying to think that way, yeah. So we'll have to address that, we'll have to move that in. It's not a big deal, because all I've done at the minute, like I said, nothing's tightened, so don't worry about that bottom bars moving. But just double check that everything is in right. We'll just get this again, just to try and explain. So this is what we're doing. This is the water pump we've replaced. That's the bottom tension that we're about to tension. This is the tensioner we've already tensioned, because that's the little bolt. This is the mark I've marked up here with the tippex, and these two black marks is where I put this fella in. So we are getting close now. So all I'm going to have to do is tension that, make sure this mark is okay. Now, if you tension this timing belt and this slips, don't worry about it. Take the timing belt back off, move this bottom pulley and retension it. Sometimes you might have to do it 3 or 4 times. It can move, but as long as you don't start the engine with that move, you have no problem. If that moves hellish, doesn't matter. Take the belt off, reset it, tension the belt back on. As you can see, ours is moved slightly, so I'm just going to twist that, put it back on the marks, tension up, and hopefully we're sorted. Now I'm just going to turn this so we get the old marks lining back up properly. As you can see, it's as easy as that. Now, that's it there. Now as you can see, these bottom marks are lined up again, but if you made any adjustment, it's always best just to go back up to the top to make sure nothing's moved in the top. Now, this is where it becomes fun, because normally I would start from the bottom tension and I'd go around anti-clockwise, and more or less this would be the last thing to put on, but because this tool's in the way, we can't really do that. And that's the easiest way to stop the bottom pulley from slipping. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten up this tensioner here, and hopefully this doesn't move. Now if it moves, we'll just take the tension back off and reset it. I'll show you if it moves. There's a few tricks you can do if it moves. If it moves to the left slightly or the right, you can actually take the belt off, slightly set it wrong, and as you tension the belt, it will pull it back in line. So if we have to do that, we'll do that, but we're going to see now exactly what we have to do or don't have to do. That's the wrong size. Size 15. So I'm just going to nip that again. And that's just nipped, it's not tight at all. Get our Allen key. It's the wrong size. Now YouTubers, unfortunately I was looking back at the video and you just can't see this properly in the engine. So I'm just going to explain it to you now just so it makes a lot more sense. This is the tensioner, the second tensioner we've done. The first tensioner you can see fine. The second one, there's just not enough light there or anything like that. So anyway, you can see the little arrow. Now that arrow tells you which way you need to turn the tensioner. So if you imagine this in your engine, now you can see this arrow here and you can see this notch there. So what you do is you tighten this, just nip it kind of nicely, and then what you do is you turn your Allen key the way the arrow, you turn it, you turn it, you turn it, you turn it until it meets up, so that arrow meets up with that mark, and you hold this with your hand like that, and then you tighten the bolts. Simple as that. That's how you know you've got the right tension. Now hopefully that explains it and you can see an awful lot better than what you could see in the engine. Then what you do is you just turn the engine twice by hand, or 2-3 times, just to make sure nothing's locking, make sure everything is fine. You'll see that in the next part of the video. But that's it. That mark with this mark, tighten her up. Job's a good one. I'm going to keep going so we see these marks again. Now everything feels good. I can feel compression, there's no locking, there's no banging. And what I mean by locking is you will not be able to turn it. You'll literally turn it and you'll just like, you physically won't be able to go any further. Now I'm just going to line up them bottom marks now. And as I do that, now them bottom marks are lined up and our top marks are lined up. Just quickly check this. And that goes in. So we know we're absolutely sorted. I'm going to spin this one more time just to make sure that. Again, all the marks line up, top marks, just put that back in. Sorted. It's like a job on the high street. Right, what I'm going to do is now, I'm going to take off that bottom pole and I'll put the pulley back on before I do anything else. And the reason is because, believe it or not, this pulley actually stops the timing belt from coming off. Then I'm going to start it. And the reason I'm going to start it without putting anything on it is just to make sure that there is no problems. Now we've turned the engine by hand, so we know it's not locking. So if there's a problem, we know we're not going to do any damage to the engine. There still could be a problem, but at least if there is, there's going to be no damage done. So we're going to literally put this on, start her up, only maybe 10-15 seconds, that's all. Obviously there's no water in the engine, there's no nothing, but we're going to know if we're sorted. So I'm going to do that. Like I was saying before, there's a little hole there which lines up with a little nipple on here. So you want to get that in. Now that's in. Now that's in. And tighten this with the gun. And this is when you really do need a gun, to be honest. Now, what we can do is, now, we can actually start this. This is normally easy with two people, because one person can hold the engine, another person can start it. Because obviously, there's no engine mount on, so the engine can move quite a lot. So we're going to try that next. Now, this is the scary bit for all you first time timing belt people out there, to physically crank the engine to make sure it starts. So I'm going to now crank it to see if it starts. Like I said, I'm going to leave it for about 10-15 seconds just to make sure there's no noise banging, there's no blue smoke, there's no nothing. The engine starts easy, it ticks over nice, it does absolutely everything it's supposed to do. So we're just going to try that now. Fingers crossed. If anything goes wrong now, you're in trouble. Now look, it's as simple as that. That's it. We can now put everything back together and we know we're good. But before you start it, make sure you put that bottom pulley on. Because if you don't, that belt will come off and then you're going to have a world of trouble. So that bottom pulley has to go on. That's it. So we're just going to put everything back together now and that's the timing belt done.